YouTube, it's Mama Doe Dawn, and I am a single mom to one little bio kid named Charlotte. I was also a foster parent for 4 years, and it's something that I would really like to get into again. Unfortunately, I got married, divorced, accumulated a bunch of debt, and I'm trying to put myself in a better financial position before I jump into the fostering thing again. But I mention fostering all the time because it's something I'm super passionate about, and yet I've never really sat down and talked about it. But my fostering experience is really unique in the fact that I was actually a tribal foster parent, and I am not even a tribal member. I am not Native American, but I did foster Native American children through an Alaskan Native tribe. Today I wanted to talk about how exactly I, as a white woman, became a tribal foster parent. I actually moved to a little Yupik village in rural Alaska when I was 18. It was about 5 months after I turned 18. I put an ad on Craigslist looking for a job and got a job in this little village as an accountant for a fisheries company. Immediately just totally fell in love with the landscape, the people, the culture. I just completely immersed myself in everything Yupik. Over my first year being in the Yupik village, I really befriended a lot of my neighbors and a lot of the neighborhood kids. Yupik culture in rural Alaska is just very tight-knit communities, very trustworthy. It's like, you know, it takes a village to raise a child is truly the mentality out there. Like, all your children are out playing during the day and all the parents are kind of just keeping an eye. And I was outside a lot doing gardening things and stuff like that. And a lot of kids would just come over and naturally help me in the garden and converse, and I got to know their parents through that. The following summer, knowing that I was going to be having a bunch of kids come in and out of my yard, I decided to just set up some fun little activities for just the local neighborhood kids. And one thing that no kid out there really had gotten to experience was a pool. So I bought a pool and I set it up, and everyone in town knew. Like, the entire village, like every single day I was having pretty much every single child in the village, like 50 to 70 kids come over and want to play in my pool, and they would be taking turns, and I ended up buying like a slip and slide and a water slide and a little pool and a big pool, and it was like this little makeshift water park that I was running. And then it started being like I would give them meals during the day. And I also just got really close with so many of the kiddos and so many of the families. Like, at that point, I was really knowing everyone because I was meeting all the kids' parents, and I was pretty much like free babysitter taking care of the kids during the day. Pool transitioned into other things. I started doing educational activities. I started taking hikes on them. I started doing holiday activities where I would, that year I ended up like donating a bunch of Halloween costumes to kids who couldn't afford them. I gave Christmas presents anonymously to a bunch of kids, like pretty much as Santa Claus. I like took them and placed them on their doorstep, but I just got really super involved in the community and was like doing everything I could for these kiddos who truly became my life. My entire life, if I wasn't working, was revolving around these kiddos. And there were some kiddos who absolutely had great family lives, but it is a pretty poverty-stricken area out there, so there were a lot of kiddos who did not have great family lives, and I just totally took them under my wing, and I was there, and pretty much like my life revolved around caring for these kiddos. So after about a full year and a half there, I saw in the tribal newsletter that they pretty much had a plea asking for people to become tribal foster parents. They didn't have enough tribal foster parents, and they were having to send their children into the city and away from the native culture, and they wanted foster parents who were in the area. And I ended up reaching out to the tribe, and at that point I knew everyone in the tribe. I had met them and they knew me, and I was like, I'm interested in doing this, and they were more than happy. They were like, absolutely. There's a few reasons that set me apart as a white person that they were eager and willing to allow me to foster tribal kids. And I think the biggest one was the fact that I immersed myself in their culture. I was eating Yupik food. I was going out on hunting trips. I knew how to fish. I knew how to sew fur. And then I had just totally taken the kids under my wing. I knew everyone's families. I was close with families. So if I was fostering a child within that family, I would still have contact with all the family members. I would ensure that their cultural needs were being met. Like, I truly was probably the most white Yupik person there could be. I'm not saying that I was Yupik, but I truly immersed myself in the Yupik culture and did everything in my power to learn as much as I possibly could about it. I had actually always wanted to foster. My one goal since 14, I have dream journals that I write in every year about all of my dreams and aspirations and everything all the time. It was fostering. I wanted to foster, I wanted to adopt, I wanted to have a really big family. So I was so excited about this opportunity, and I was only 19 at the time, so very young, like younger than like the legal age to foster in most states actually, but they were super desperate for good foster parents that would keep their children in their native culture, would be able to teach them the language. And I was speaking, definitely not fluently, but conversationally, I was speaking Yupik at that point. I knew the culture, I knew how to cook, I knew how to do a lot of the traditional things that were really important for them to keep in their children's lives. So they brought me in for an interview, and I sat down with the chief, I think it was, and she basically interviewed me. I put in my application, you know, they ran the background check and everything. And at that point she was like, all right, well, we have kiddos that we want to bring back to our village right now. Can you take them next week? Like, absolutely. And that's what started it all. Within a week, I had 3 kiddos show up on my doorstep with trash bags. I had very briefly met these kids before, but they were actually sent out shortly after I got to the village. So I didn't know them really well, but I just poured my heart into it at that point. I had my 3 official foster kiddos. It has moved on to playing with this really loud toy, so hopefully it's not too distracting. But basically, once I got my 3 official foster kiddos, all the rest of the kids in the village heard about it. And it became this avalanche of children in need coming to me. The majority of these weren't even official tribal, like, foster children. It was just kids who their parents would be intoxicated or something really bad domestic violence-wise was going on at home, and they would run away and come to my house. At this point, I knew their parents, I knew the lifestyle they were living at home, and I knew the kids really well. And I also had connections with the tribe, the state troopers, and the local police, and the tribal police. So 4 different entities that I really needed on my side. I'd already developed relationships with just through the activities that I'd done in the village, and then also being an official foster parent. So I already had the background check. I had the certifications at that point. And I had all these children coming to my home at night most of the time, or during the day when they were really hungry if they didn't have food at home. And every single time a kid came to my house, the first people I would call were the state troopers. I'd be like, hey, so-and-so is at my house. They're saying this is going on at their house. I'm going to keep them for the night. And the state troopers were like, whatever. They really didn't care. They didn't want to deal with it. Then I would call the local and tribal police and also let them know. And eventually I just talked to the tribe. I was like, hey, I have so many kids coming in and out of my home. Can I just be like a safe home? Like, I will give you guys updates when kiddos come, and, you know, when their sober parents pick them up. But otherwise, it was just like a free-for-all. My door was always unlocked. Any kid in the village knew that they could come to my home and they could stay in my home if they needed to. So I had children all the way from ages 2 with their older siblings bringing them to the ages of 18 coming to my home when things were getting bad at their home. And it was a 1-room cabin, no running water, heated with a wood stove, but it was just filled with beds. I had tons of blow-up mattresses, tons of blankets, 2 sets of bunk beds, 2 couches. So there was plenty of room, and I didn't have a lot. Like, I didn't have a lot of toys. I made sure I always had food, and there were some toys and things so the kids could come in and play. But mostly it was just, you know, the kids knew that they could come there. There was going to be food. There was going to be a sober adult. There was going to be a place for them to sleep. And that's just what I became for 4 years in the village. I had officially legal foster children. I had quite a few different sibling groups come through me, because that was what was important to me, was keeping sibling groups together. So I had quite a few sibling groups officially put in my home, but I also had the safe home where I had around 70 different children coming in and out of my home when they needed it. I ended up stopping fostering because I met my ex-husband, and at that point I had pretty much been single for the first 5 years of my life. I was feeling a little lonely, and I was also in this super remote area, and I kind of wanted the adventure of being in a relationship, and that relationship moved extremely quickly. So I was moving in with him after talking to him for like 2 months. So crazy fast. And that's really what would ultimately pull me away from the village. there's still a lot of regret there, and I wish I wouldn't have done that. But I still have great relationships with pretty much all of my foster children, most of the village, honestly, and most of the people out there that I got to know, and it was a huge blessing. The fact that the tribal foster children, ICWA, like ICWA is what they're called, which is the Indian Child Welfare Act. The ICWA workers entrusted me with their kiddos, and that to this day means so much to me. And it's something that I will never forget. The Yupik culture in and of itself still plays such a huge role in my life. Like, I still cook Yupik cuisine. There's a lot of little bits and pieces of the way they behave that still are totally just ingrained in me. Like, I felt a true, like, soul spiritual connection to the Yupik culture, and the children there, like, meant the world to me, and they still do to this day. And the fact that I was blessed enough to be a tribal foster parent is something I will never take for granted. It was such a huge blessing, and those kids brought 10,000 times more into my life than what I ever could have put into theirs. It is the really interesting story of how I, as a white person, got the privilege of being a tribal foster parent, and kind of how that all intertwined, and how my foster home ended up turning into a safe home. And it was a crazy, awesome experience. And to coincide with that even further, I had a following on Facebook at that time, like about 5,000 Facebook followers in Alaska, people from like the Anchorage and Fairbanks area who I would just share with all the things I was doing out there. And then I had a lot of the support of the natives too, and that were in rural areas, and people would just send me supplies. Like, I got free supplies to do things with these kiddos all the time. I got food sent out there, so I wasn't just busting my budget every month just buying food for all these kiddos. I got toys, I got clothes, I got school supplies. People donated thousands of dollars of things to this little, like, unofficial, not even nonprofit, it wasn't tax deductible, just this unofficial safe home that I was running. And it was amazing. It was truly amazing. I don't regret a single part of it. It was truly one of the highlights of my life. And if I could find a way to, like, go back there and continue doing that, I would totally do that in a heartbeat. The unfortunate part is it's so expensive to live out there. I don't have a place to live in anymore. It would be really difficult to get back out there, and the cultural adjustment for Charlotte would also be a lot, but it's something that I really treasure, I hold dear in my heart. And just talking about Alaska and my foster kiddos is something that I glow about, because it was just such an important part of my life. And I would love to talk more about Alaskan type things in the future with you guys. If you're interested in hearing more about, like, my big Alaskan adventure, I spent 5 years in Alaska, and I was able to do so much out there, and just, it was such a once in a lifetime experience that I'll never regret taking. So I'm so glad that I got to share this with you guys today. My foster kiddos, my fostering experience is something that I treasure and I hold so dear in my heart, and I can't wait till financially I'm out of debt and I am in a place where I can really give foster kiddos a good life again, and I can dive back into that adventure, because fostering, you guys, is just oh my gosh, it just fills my soul. Like, I love it. I love children, all children. Like, there really isn't a child I meet that I love more than another child. Like, my daughter is equally as loved as all of my foster kiddos and all the kiddos that came to my safe home. I meet kiddos in this area. We go to library story time, and I see the same kiddos every time, and I get to know them, and I, like, just love children. Like, truly, just wholeheartedly, just cannot help but, like, love children. And I have the same feeling towards animals, like, just this universal equal love. And there's different kinds of love. Like, you give each child the kind of love that they need. So I think you can love children in different ways, but the amount of love and the amount of just pure, undeniable, like, admiration I have for these little beings is, it's just, it fills me up. Like, fostering is my world, and I am so happy I got to sit down and share this with you guys today. I hope you found this a little interesting. If you're interested in hearing more about my Alaskan life or my fostering experience, I would love to share that with you guys. So please let me know in the comment section below. And as always, thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in seeing videos about my single mom life now, I'm not fostering and I'm not in Alaska, but I got my own set of things going on. I'd love to have you come back to my channel. And once again, as always, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.